Good evening. I'm Dorian Grubaugh. I'm with Genoptic. About me, before getting into the smart mobility or traffic safety industry, I was a police officer for 20 years and retired in 2012 and was recruited into this field kind of naturally because I spent half of it in the traffic division. So, that didn't do it. Oh, that's easier. Okay, I don't have a long presentation. I will try to get through this part. A lot of this is about questions and what questions might come up. I don't know the procedure here, but if you have any, I'm happy to answer them as we go so you don't have to wait or at the end.
Well, actually, we find that it's easier to let you finish the presentation,
Okay.
Then we'll jump in. We'll write them down here. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
So again, I'm with Genoptic. Genoptic is a international company that has 3 different divisions, from automotive to the biggest division are optics and photonics. We always add this in here. We have the NASA contract. We've done all the optics and photonics on the Mars rover, so all the pictures you see from Mars came from equipment developed by Genoptic. So, I mean, we're able to capture images and do things off planet, and we've been doing them very well on planet as well. Moving further, what we're talking about tonight is the smart mobility division. What you're talking about with speed cameras is a smart mobility enforcement process, part of what you would call a Vision Zero campaign, the enforcement leg of the education, enforcement, and engineering. Everything going together to reduce speed. So as I've heard things here tonight, which I think are great, I think it's important to point out that the purpose of this program that you're considering is to reduce the amount of cars speeding on your roadways. The goal would be to reduce speeding by approximately 50% in the first year. That would be the goal, to reduce your accidents. It's been proven to do so. So the object here is not to, which is misgiven, is not to come in and see how much money can be made. The business model is to see if we can't cut how much money is being produced by the program so that we know that safety is happening, and all that can be delivered through numbers and data collected. Just to give a little bit about us so that you know who you're talking to, we are an international company. We have 6 regional units across the world. I represent the Americas, so North America, South America, the Caribbean. Our United States, or our North America, or our Americas division, is out of Jupiter, Florida. There's over 4,300 employees worldwide. We've been around since the turn of the century. We've been doing speed and red light enforcement since the 60s in Europe. So since the inception and development of this type of technology, Genoptic's been a part of it. We have in America just in the U.S. alone, over 3,000 sites. So of our 30+ thousand sites, over 3,000 are in the United States. Our system here, and I don't always, but I figured I'd bring it out because a lot of times it's always talk of the cameras and they're watching you and everything. So I thought I'd bring the defendant, so to speak. And that's what we'll be talking about right there. That is a Vector SR camera. I mean, other vendors will have different versions of this, but it's just a piece of equipment that law enforcement uses, the force multiplier. It's just a tool belt, a tool in their tool belt. It's just something that could be utilized, and it's just an object. It's only watching, it's not watching people, it is watching a section of roadway, and that's all it's watching. Our camera happens to be able to do multiple things. So you'll see up here multiple things. Out of that one camera, you could do red light enforcement. We put school zone safety, but any type of spot speed enforcement, you could do point-to-point enforcement. It does have ANPR and ALPR on board. I'll get into that a little bit here in just a bit on the ANPR side, which is automatic number plate recognition versus automatic license plate recognition. I'll go over that. And then DVR recorded video, 24/7 monitoring. So, as I was saying, these cameras are built to watch a section of roadway or an intersection, depending on what you're talking about. Today we're talking about speed. So a section of roadway, approximately 100 meters, so just over 300 feet of roadway. This camera in particular, 3 lanes at a time. Bigger cameras, you get more lanes. But what it's doing is monitoring every moving object in that field of vision across that 100 meters or so. So, as we were talking before, police officer pulls out, gets one car, why didn't you pull the others over? Well, I could only pull one over. This camera can rate every single car within that 100-meter view across those lanes, whether it's 30 cars at a time or 176 cars. It has all of them. It does not take a break. It is there for as long as it's left there. With that said, it is absolutely not a replacement for law enforcement or traffic enforcement. It is only an aid. That's why in most laws it's written in. If an officer gives a subject a ticket that the camera also caught, the officer ticket is the one that gets processed and the camera ticket goes away. And that's there because traditional law enforcement and traffic enforcement with police is never meant to go away. Not ever. This just lightens the load and provides 24/7 enforcement. With that is really basically how you reduce your numbers. People know that the cameras are there through the signage, through the news reports inevitably, through all the public awareness, and people will slow down. And as your program progresses, or as you have it long enough, people stop trying to track where are the cameras so I just don't have to speed here. They just start driving more hyper-focused like they were when they were 16, and they're trying to obey every single rule. And that's what you're trying to get, is more compliance and people paying better attention as they're driving. I'll play this short little stint. This video is going to be a visual. Maybe. It's going to show you kind of how this works. Now, this, of course, came from our European friends, so as we're watching it, it's also for average speed or point-to-point speed. So you'll see the cameras, and all I would say is, in the enforcement you're looking at here, just imagine the camera's turned around looking at the back of the car, not the front of the car. In this, they're scanning them before they enter the zone, and as they move through, they would get to the second set of cameras, but that's determining average speed over a section of roadway, which we do a lot in Europe and is possible. But for here, Spot, it's recognizing all these cars, and it's grabbing and holding the plates of the ones that are in violation, whichever has been set by the community or the police department. And it's doing that across all those lanes simultaneously for every car that comes by. Here is an example of sort of inside the camera what's going on. I said ANPR and ALPR, and that sometimes gets jumbled. ALPR is where it's scanning every plate and it can send alerts to police for wanted vehicles or whatever. Our cameras use what's called ANPR. It has ALPR as well. Not everyone wants to use that. It's a function that you just don't have to use, or it doesn't have to come with the camera. But our cameras do use ANPR, or number plate recognition, so it's actually reading the camera itself, and the artificial intelligence on board are identifying the vehicle and reading the plate as the car is going by, as it's getting, say, a violation. So if the car comes up as a violation or speeding over the threshold set, the camera has read the plate and identified the car and auto-processed that through the NLET system, basically the BMV, and put it into a ticket format and automatically send it on to the police for review. We also use, I don't know if you can see it like that, but it looks like there's a lot of little lenses in here. That's all IR flash. We also use an external IR flashes depending on the darkness of the roadway. This video is actually specifically set up in an area where there were no lights whatsoever, and we didn't even add any external IR flash to it, just the 16 nodes that were in the camera, and we're still able to pick up the vehicle and the license plate without any exterior flash. I bring that up only because as the industry is trying to go away from the white flash that you see, which is also a distraction on the roadway. We do not use white flash in any of our systems anywhere in the world. Deep learning, artificial intelligence. Talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning. We have a very large AI engine that we've been developing for decades. What is it basically? Basically, it's if you could take a human brain and put it in a machine to not just do what you're asking it to do, but learn as you go. And by that I mean, we've all seen license plates. They might change, different things like that. Well, the artificial intelligence engine on board can actually see the new plate a few times and understand what it's looking at and then process it that way. It's also what is powering it to learn different things. An example would be as we program the camera in, say, a school zone to only operate for certain hours. Well, the AI engine on board is recognizing past just what we program it in. It's actually monitoring that, so if anything were to go wrong, the camera would recognize certain scenarios and know there was an issue. This is also more used on our civil security platform when we're talking about LPR. We're developing some things for Homeland Security, and that's when this really gets kind of technical. I won't bore you with that this evening, but that engine on board is what's able to read plates and recognize vehicles and process them automatically, so that the timeline, instead of being what used to be in the beginning of the industry, might be a couple of weeks before you can even get a ticket in the mail. That's why most laws say that you need to have that mailed out within 30 days of the instance. We try to cut that process by the system recognizing the plate, auto-processing the plate, putting it into the format for a law enforcement officer review. Once that review has happened, if the officer has deemed an event to have happened and needs to issue the ticket, they will approve that, which will put the officer's signature and badge number on the ticket, and then it will be mailed to the registered owner the very next day. These are some examples of machine learning or artificial intelligence versus conventional, and I know it says ALPR, you could say ANPR, just the way computers are reading things. Conventional technology looks at a letter or a number and it goes almost like you're clicking a typewriter. Artificial intelligence and machine learning scans the entire thing. It's if you've watched movies, you'll see sometimes a laser light going over something that's able to scan and read that, and it's neat in the movie, but essentially that's what's happening here. It's scanning the entire plate, and it's seen so many things that whether it's covered or rusted out or whatnot, in 99+% of the case, it has identified the plate number. If there is some question, it would kick over to a human for review. When we talk about these installations, nowadays there's many different ways, fixed or mobile. So you can put cameras on, you can either we could put in poles, we can go off of any existing street furniture to include light poles, school zone poles, telephone poles, highway gantries, and whatnot, or we can install our own pole and put cameras on that. On top of that are mobile solutions. So the mobile solution we use is a solar-based portable trailer, like the speed trailers that the chief was talking about earlier. They're actually basically on the same trailer platform. We have a solar panel on there that's charging some batteries in the box, and that trailer can be set out, and it was built to be able to set out and not need any maintenance or checking of the batteries for anywhere from 8 to 12 months, unlike other trailers in the industry. On top of the mast that you see there is a camera. One trailer can have a couple cameras facing each direction and cover an entire 4 to 6 lane roadway. We also generally will put speed signs on them, the same flashing speed signs, so that they'll flash when you're over whatever the set amount is that the city would want, so that the driver not only has seen a sign saying that you're photo enforcing in an area maybe, but they're also seeing the sign flashing at them as they're coming up before they're on camera, before they're going to be in the zone where the camera is, trying to get them to slow down before they're even there. Again, the goal is to get people to slow down. So these can be put up or taken down in 30 minutes or less, so they're very mobile and can be moved in within a couple hours to a new location. Your program, or any program, any photo enforcement program, and the one specifically in Iowa work this way, from start to finish. The company that is going to come in is going to provide you the equipment. They're going to put the equipment up. They're going to maintain the equipment. They're going to make sure the calibration is accurate, the daily testing. They're going to bring in the infractions, pass them off to the police. They're going to mail them for the city, collect the fines, and they're going to do a lot of back office work. So you have to have a very good back office, which we've had a back office, as they call it, the back office facility, or BOF. Over 20 years, been refined, and we have our own development teams, we do at least in the United States, that can customize this per community. So if there's something that needs to be developed different as far as reporting or what's going on in the back end for a community, depending on the type of reports they need, it's easily done. But through this system, quick and efficient evaluation of not just the incidents, but then there's also, as the chief was talking about, transparency of program. Finance can look up what's going on with different tickets that are out there. The police can look up how many tickets have been issued, how many, they can do that by month, by day, and you can print reports. So they'll be able to access reports. I know you put in there an annual report, but the police department should be able to report. They could do it on a daily basis if you wanted them to, but weekly, quarterly, by simply clicking in the time frame they want, and the system will give back how many tickets have been issued, how many vehicles have passed, and things of that nature. I say this with the warning program that was discussed earlier, and that's the baseline. So any program that goes in, you would have a 30-day warning period where warnings are mailed out, not tickets for money. Just another thing to get the public used to the cameras. That'll be your baseline. That's the baseline of what the problem is before the program starts. 3 months in, 6 months in, 9 months in, 12 months in. You'll be able to go and not just see, well, we only wrote this many tickets this month versus this many tickets last month, but 6 months ago, this is how many cars went past this camera during that time frame, and this month, this is how many cars went past. So it actually breaks it down further and gives you a percentage. We've reduced speeding by this percentage because the traffic's the same and the speeding problem is less. The chief was talking about COVID, and yes, I worked for a different company then, but I was shocked to see that everyone in the industry was saying, well, we should have a lot less tickets coming up. No one's on the roadways. And the traffic was significantly less, but I will tell you the amount of tickets written were much more. Okay, we're maintaining and managing all the data from the program, so everything, and I do mean everything. If somebody mails in with their ticket a letter, that is kept photographed and kept in a file. When somebody receives a notice, they'll be able to go to a site and view the same evidence that the police looked at. So the same photographs, the same video, whatever it is, they will see the exact same thing, and it'll be available to them. All the records that are for each of those cases will be available to that person. I mean, not the public, but that person that was issued the ticket. Same information the police has, the same information the city has. Everyone has the same information. Processing flow, I discussed a little bit. And this is where I talk about the process getting much better, and especially with usage of the ANPR technology. You have an event that happens today, and it used to be that over the next week, it would be processed by a human being, sent to the police, given another 5 to 7 days for them to process and get it mailed out in his weekly process. An event captured today by one of our cameras would be auto-processed today by one of our cameras and put into the system for law enforcement to check off within a day. Once they've reviewed it, the minute they accept, if they reject, the ticket is rejected. They've put reason for rejection and it's gone. If they accept it, the very next day it's mailed out. So with no hiccups, that process could be 3 days before a ticket's in the mail, which in the industries, I know it's not immediate, but it's very quick. These are, again, as the chief mentioned, civil violations, so they're more like a parking ticket. But where you get the enforcement benefit is what I talked about before, the signage and just having them out there and people knowing that they're there. And especially if you have mobile platforms that you're moving, even when you're updating that daily, people in most of the cities I've ever worked or seen, the reason that comes down is people just decide when they're in those communities they're just going to drive a little bit more cautious. This is an example of a ticket. It doesn't matter. These don't vary company to company. It's pretty standard, not just in the state of Iowa, but across the United States. All the notices of liability look pretty much the same. There is a continuity in the industry and a standard way of doing things. Back office also with financial reports, statistics, payment portals. The payment portal is what I talked about. That's where citizens would go and they'd be able to review your ordinance. They would be able to see what the evidence that was collected or the ticket. They have a copy of it. They'd also be able to see the pictures online. They would be able to request a hearing date if they wanted. They would be able to pay the fine, and they would be able to see any type of correspondence that's gone out. So if they didn't answer the first notice and they got a second notice and they were wondering, well, this couldn't have been sent out, they would see that it was, they would see when, they would see all of that there. Everything, again, is very transparent. Reporting of every instance in the program, from ticket issuance to payments, to statistics afterwards, to a court hearing manager, because in most municipalities in Iowa, usually there's kind of a mediation hearing first with the individual. Again, these programs are not to take the human out of the process. So if somebody has some mediating, circumstances, they can go to the police directly. I was rushing to the hospital. I was whatever the instance is. And law enforcement has the last say. If they say, okay, we would not have issued a ticket here, they can cancel that ticket out. If it gets to the mediation hearing, the mediation person would be able to mediate that with the person. And if that does not, both parties can't agree, then it moves on to municipal court, as the chief was saying. So in these programs that you're looking at, what you should be looking for is turnkey. Pretty much 99% of everything provided by the vendor, which is what we do. The police department's providing the manpower because the law enforcement officer does have to review. And this is a partnership. This is not a company coming in saying, this is how many cameras we think you should have, this is where we think they should go. It's actually the reverse. We come in and work in partnership with law enforcement and engineering and ask, where are your problems at? These tickets cannot produce revenue. They can't just produce revenue from a roadway. You have to have a problem there. The only revenue comes because tickets are issued. Tickets are only issued because somebody's going a certain miles an hour, certain mile per hour over the speed limit that law enforcement has set. So the companies like ours, we especially do not set anything. We're coming to work for the municipality. The only input we put in is if you have a location, our engineers might say, well, we can't put a camera right there. We can put it 15 feet this way, something of that nature. Whatever the threshold is picked by the municipality. Whatever the fines are, picked by the municipality. And again,